Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we're going to learn about the Buckethead signature Chackson Y2KV. Now, unfortunately, this is not a real production model, so you can't actually go type in on Reverb Chackson signature Buckethead. This did not exist. It was a custom order for himself, and as far as I'm aware, the only place you can get these things Chinese-made replicas, which I do not endorse buying. I actually got this as a freebie thrown in because I purchased some other Buckethead guitars from somebody. So no, I won't tell you where to buy these, and no, I won't sell you this one, but we can learn about the guitar that Buckethead heavily used in the early 2000s, especially during his time with Guns N' Roses. Okay, so first off, this is based off of the Chackson Y2KV, which was a signature guitar for Dave Mustaine. They were first mass-produced in the year 2000, you know, the whole Y2K scare. That's kind of what the name's playing off of. The way I understand it is Mustaine developed that V as a slightly less aggressive-looking King V, because, I mean, look at the King. It's really sharp and pointy, and it's got that nice pointy headstock to it, whereas Y2KVs, they would look like this. They're kind of Gibson Flying V-esque, but not exactly the same. I mean, take a look at the headstock. Even that has that 3 on a side going on. So it's a little bit less aggressive, but still, you know, a signature guitar that he could call his own. So Buckethead, he has one that looks like this. What is the story with that? Well, apparently it was a custom order for him. And unfortunately, there was no signature limited edition run, but hey, Chackson, make it happen. Make it happen. I wish I could have reviewed a real one, but it doesn't exist. Because the only real official Buckethead signature guitar that Buckethead has is his Les Pauls. He's got the signature as well as the studio. This is one of his signatures. And one thing that Buckethead has always hated, being kind of a tall guy, is that guitars look like tiny little toys in his hands. So, like this Les Paul, it is oversized, it's been chambered, it's baritone scale length, 27 inches. It might not look too crazy just on its own, but when you compare it to a regular sized Les Paul, that's when the differences become quite massive. It's quite the large guitar. I love these things. I think they're some of the best sounding and playing instruments. Whether you like Buckethead's kill switch style and whatnot, that really doesn't matter. They're just fantastic guitars to play. And in my eyes, it's the Les Paul that is his signature guitar. This is kind of seen as like his backup, but it's the second most iconic one out of his lineup, in my opinion anyways. So what we've got going on here is they've taken the Y2K design, so that's kind of where your body shape comes from. Remember, this is a Chinese-made replica, so it's not going to be the exact same as his. Instead of being stringed through, he has an original Floyd Rose on his. He has a single button kill switch. I think his layout is slightly different than what we have here. He's also got different pickups. But the big things to know about his is the KFC stripe paint job. So if you look at a KFC bucket, you'll see this exact design. Buckethead has that whole chicken thing going on. We've talked about him in the other episodes. He's just a fantastic guitar player. Even if you can't appreciate his eccentric style, you can at least appreciate the music that he creates. So the all-white paint job with the stripe, that's something unique. The Floyd Rose makes it unique, the kill switch, and most importantly, the reverse-style Chackson headstock. I think that's what makes this guitar the coolest thing ever, because it's a little bit unorthodox, it's really pointy, kind of a shredder guitar, but at the same time, you know, it's grounded in reality with this kind of more Flying V-esque shape. But to the best of my knowledge, his Flying V is also oversized and baritone in scale length. Especially if you look in photos, you can tell that it's bigger than normal. And these Chinese replicas, they never do the baritone part. They'll do the look, but they won't ever get the baritone scale length right. Or the oversized body, and especially the giant headstock that his has. Buckethead actually has two different Chackson-style Flying Vs. The first one's kind of a natural color. You can see it right here. That one is nicknamed Coopwood. That one is the regular string-through style. Whereas this one, nicknamed KFC, it's the Floyd Rose. So let's go ahead and throw this Chinese fake on the workbench and take an individual look at its parts and specs and see if it's actually a halfway decent instrument or not, just for fun. While I was taking this Chackson Buckethead V apart, I had an epiphany as to why this is not an official signature guitar. The most iconic thing about this is the stripes, and KFC is very famous for saying, hey, we don't really like you associating with us. Take that bucket off now. And that's why he wears the white one. So I'm guessing we will never see this. So I mean, it really stinks that we can't have a true signature guitar, but this is probably the only way we would ever see one. Again, I do not condone buying fakes, but here is what you would get if you were to break the law. So our pickups, I think they're actually literally garbage. Now, I can't guarantee that it came from the factory like this because, again, somebody gave this to me because I bought the other stuff from them. But the pickups have literally just been taped together. I don't know if they had some sort of an issue with these, needed to put a new lead onto them, or maybe that's just how the factory cuts down on time. They have pre-wired assemblies, and then they just take that through there and then splice things shoddily together. That's what it looks like to me. Some sort of a splice underneath there, but it just says FC50 and FC52. Now, as far as the routes, nothing fancy. This looks like a really thick poly finish, so nothing super high-end here. And these pickups are not going to be the best. Who knows what we're going to find inside here. I mean, this is a very shoddy output jack. I mean, you can see that it's like bending up right there. It's not completely flush. Let's see if this puppy even works. Okay, lo and behold, I guess the tape's holding up. So 10.26 k ohms in our bridge, and our neck position about 9.9, so the middle will be about 5-ish. Yep, 504. Okay, and then as far as our electronics go, I'm guessing we have some sort of a dual volume and a master tone. Let's check that out. Okay, so this is our neck volume. I'm guessing this will be bridge volume. Yep, and then this is likely master tone. Yep, that's looking right. Then this is our kill switch. That'll just completely take the signal out. So it's like you just unplugged your guitar with the push of a button. At least it's a momentary kill switch and not just, on and off type thing. The Sanwa arcade style button switches, so much easier to do. You can also do the double tap and stuff. This is the only kill switch you should ever put in a guitar if you're trying to do stutter effects. You couldn't double tap this if you tried because you gotta push it down so far until it cuts the signal. And you can tell, just a cheap, basic three-way toggle switch. But the knurled knobs, they're not half bad. They're not the style that actually secures to the post, so you should just be able to pull these off if you wanted to change them. Now, as far as our bridge system here, it says it's a real Floyd Rose, but I highly doubt it. Just like our headstock says it's a real Chackson. It's not. But what somebody's actually done to this, likely because the whole bridge is just garbage, they've blocked it off with this big piece of black wood. Now, unfortunately, to completely stabilize the bridge, you have to deck this down really far, and then the guitar's unplayable. So I actually had to raise this whole system up a little bit. So now there's a little bit of wiggle room, but at least the thing can actually be played. Now, as far as how the factory did this design, what it feels like to me is there's probably a red base coat. Like they at least spray this part with like some tape over top of it, and then they take the tape off and then it reveals the red. Because you can definitely feel a ridge on the edge right here, like the finish dips in, then comes up, dips in, then comes up. So that has to be how they do it. Now, thankfully on the top, they must have smoothed that out. You can still barely feel it, but it's very present on the edges. Here you can kind of visually see what I'm talking about. And that does continue on to the back here. Unfortunately, we can't see the body wood anywhere. I would guess a really inexpensive alder or basswood, something like that. That's usually what the imports are. Whatever they can find. Just like this, I can't really tell you exactly what it is. It looks pretty good for what it is. I will give it that. It's a really nice rosewood-esque wood. Now, whether it's actually rosewood, I don't know. I did not even know to expect this thing to have red binding. I think that's just such a cool, fantastic spec because, it matches what you got here. Now, as far as the quality of the workmanship, you can tell there's like some white smudges in here, kind of some weird stuff going on here. It looks like paper towels stuck, but it's not. I don't know what type of work the previous owner did to this, but the frets, they seem okay as is. And then we get a locking nut system on this one. And our truss rod axis would be in there, and then you can see your reverse style Chackson headstock. But as far as the neck specs itself, it looks like 1.69 inches at the nut, 2.06 by the 12th, first fret neck depth 0.9, and by the 12th 0.96. And as far as the scale length, unfortunately, no, it is not baritone. They're going for 25.5 on them. Okay, now that we got it all back together, I only had one casualty. The low E string came unwound when I was trying to stretch the strings in, so it's like, yeah, I'm not touching that anymore. I don't want to deal with that. There's definitely some ergonomic things that they could have done better. I mean, look how large the pickup screws are. The pickup rings are gigantic. It's just their standard, really cheapy, generic stuff. This is a really clunky feeling guitar up here. I'm sure the real Chackson one would be a little bit more refined than this. I mean, that's just, yeah, not very good design. I mean, that's the thing with these fake guitars, you know, if they would actually come up with an original idea and produce guitars of this quality for like $250 to $400, yeah, I'm sure there would be a market for these things. But instead, they decide to steal other people's ideas and their signature names, and that's where it kind of draws the line for me. As far as our back control cavities here, I mean, this is what our Floyd Rose looks like. Yeah, that's a big goofy. Take a look at this wiring. You get tiny little alpha, looks like maybe 500K pots. I mean, those will be okay. And then you can see our little kill switch right there. That's just your really basic one. I don't understand why they have all these splicing wiring jobs. But then again, I can't guarantee, you know, it left whatever Chinese factory built this one. But our strap buttons, we've got one down here, one at the base of the heel, and this is what our neck looks like. And then back here, it's kind of interesting. So this is a thick poly finish, right? But when they installed these tuners, it like cracked the finish. So it looks like giant cracks in the wood. Like sometimes that'll happen on nitro lacquer guitars, but when it happens on these poly ones, they just look like giant cracks. It's really funny, especially when you view this one from the side. It just looks like the headstock's cracking off, but no, those are just finish cracks. No serial numbers or anything to talk about, just very basic, cheap, generic tuners. But all said and done, this thing weighs about 7 pounds, 12 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and at least give it a chance to sound like Buckethead. Okay, first impressions strapping this thing on. It's balanced, but it doesn't feel very good. The whole strap button location, I feel like down here might have been better. And for whatever reason, I can't get this output jack to stay working unless I leave it unscrewed and it's just hanging outside of the guitar. How's that for innovation? So that tells me something must be shorting out in here unless it's pulled taut like that. But let's go ahead and get some of these tones anyways, just for fun. I did the best with the tuning. Remember, we're not working with the best quality stuff here. I'm noticing there's not a lot of top end to this guitar. I mean, normally it's pretty spanky. See how it's just like really muddy? I mean, I know it's slightly out of tune at the same time. But it seems to be very bass heavy here. And I'm noticing that they're distorting really early. I mean, this is a really clean tone. I don't have any distortion pedals on or anything. In all seriousness, I didn't think it sounded half bad in the room with distortion. The kill switch, despite not being quite as good as the arcade style, you could still pull off the Buckethead riffs with it. So I'd say it's good enough in that aspect. It's just a shame that they had to steal somebody else's brand name in order to sell their guitar, because honestly, if it wasn't for, you know, stealing identities and things like that, this would actually be an okay guitar. Like if it was at a store for like $300 or so, I think you'd be happy with it. I mean, sure, it's kind of clunky feeling. It's not very high-end electronics. I mean, this is literally how you have to play this one, unless you do a little bit of wing jangling with your electronics to upgrade them. The action could be lower, but it's not too bad. So all in all, I would give this guitar like a solid 6.5. It's not absolute trash, but I would not recommend buying one of these things, mainly just because of this. But I can only hope one day that we have some sort of a signature. I don't care what company it is, Gibson, Chackson, as long as it's a quality guitar. And maybe in order to get around this whole thing, they could just supply you red stripes or give you red paint that you can put it on yourself. That's probably the only way that we can get around the whole KFC thing. But hey, I hope your troglodytes enjoyed learning about the Buckethead Chackson Y2KV that he had custom ordered for himself. Unfortunately, this is the best we can get unless you want to build your own. Thank you, troglodytes, for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.